Across the world, there are hundreds of ancient constructions that seem far ahead of their time. Perfectly aligned walls, stone blocks, fitted together with astonishing precision. Ancient cities built with orderly streets, advanced hydraulic systems, and durable structures, much like those produced by modern engineering today. All of this raises a fascinating question. Why do some ancient works appear to rival, and sometimes even surpass, the knowledge of their own era? One possible explanation is that knowledge does not always progress steadily. Sometimes it accumulates, sometimes it stagnates, and at times it disappears altogether. In this documentary, we travel around the world to discover ancient wonders that seem to have been created with knowledge far ahead of their time. We will explore sites whose origins remain debated, human achievement or natural formation. Mohenjo-Daro, the Indus Valley Civilization, Pakistan. More than 4,000 years ago, on the banks of the Indus River, an enigmatic civilization flourished, a society that reached a level of organization that still amazes us today. It is known as the Indus Valley Civilization, a culture that developed across a vast region of what is now Pakistan and northwestern India. Mohenjo-Daro was one of the best preserved cities. Unlike many ancient cities, it did not grow chaotically. It was designed according to a clear and orderly plan. Its streets followed an almost perfect grid, with main avenues and secondary roads intersecting at right angles. This type of urban planning would not become widespread in many parts of the world until thousands of years later. Yet what was most striking was not its outward appearance, but what lay beneath it. Mohenjo-Daro possessed an exceptionally advanced drainage and sewer system for its time. Such a level of urban hygiene would not appear in many cities around the world until the modern era. One of the most famous spaces in Mohenjo-Daro is the so-called Great Bath, a rectangular structure that was waterproofed and supplied with clean water. Pasac Terraces, the Inca Agricultural Stairway, Peru. In the sacred valley of the Incas, the slopes of a mountain were transformed into a vast cultivated staircase. They were built by the Incas around 600 years ago, turning impossible slopes into agricultural terraces. Each terrace functions as an autonomous system with its own microclimate. The Aqueduct of Segovia, a work that defies time, Spain. It was built by the Romans in the city of Segovia to carry water into the center of the city. All of this was achieved without pumps, engines, or artificial energy. The aqueduct worked through a simple yet effective principle: gravity. A minimal slope, almost imperceptible, allowed water to flow steadily and in a controlled way. Massive stone blocks were placed without mortar, fitted together with remarkable precision. Each block transfers its weight to the next, creating a structure that is both strong and flexible. This technique allowed the aqueduct to survive earthquakes and nearly 2,000 years of history. Moray Terraces, the Inca Agricultural Laboratory, Peru. High in the Andes Mountains, enormous circular amphitheaters descend into the earth like artificial craters. The concentric terraces create stepped microclimates, with temperature differences between the upper and lower levels. Inca farmers used this natural laboratory to experiment with crops, adapting plants from the jungle, the coast, and the mountains to different conditions. The drainage system is so efficient that the terraces never flood, despite the intense Andean rains. The Yangshan Stele, ambition frozen in stone, China. At the beginning of the 15th century, during the Ming Dynasty, Emperor Yongle ordered the creation of a colossal stele to honor his father. The project was meant to surpass anything known before, not only in height or decoration, but in sheer mass and scale. When work began, craftsmen carved the shapes directly into the mountain itself. The surfaces reveal precise cuts, flat planes, and a clear geometric intention. Soon, however, an insurmountable problem became clear. Transporting blocks of that size from the quarry to the final location was impossible with the technology of the time. Even today, moving a 6,000-ton piece would require specialized machinery. The project was eventually abandoned, leaving the pieces only partially freed from the bedrock. Sagiera, mastering water at the top of the rock, Sri Lanka. On top of a massive rock rising from the Sri Lanka jungle stands a fortress and palace built in the 5th century by King Kassapa I. In ancient times, the ascent to the palace passed through the mouth of a giant lion, though today only the claws remain. What truly sets this place apart, however, is the way its builders managed to bring, control, and distribute water to the summit. The Sigiriya complex includes gardens, pools, and fountains that operated through an advanced hydraulic system, Channels, hidden conduits, and reservoirs allowed water to flow continuously, all without modern technology. This integrated design strongly resembles modern systems of sustainable water management. Every element served a purpose within a carefully connected network. Montezuma Castle, engineering at height in the Arizona desert, United States. This is a 5-story structure with 20 rooms built directly into a cliff face. The Sonagua people constructed about 900 years ago and carefully using the cave's orientation so that winter sunlight would shine directly into the dwellings. Access was only possible through a series of ladders that residents could pull up in case of attack. The structure blends so naturally with the rock that it almost appears to be part of the mountain itself, reducing the need for maintenance. The hydraulic city of Angkor, Cambodia. Angkor was not just a religious center, it was the largest pre-industrial city in the world, a metropolis functioning like a massive hydraulic machine. Officially, the temple represents Mount Meru, the mythical home of the gods in Hindu cosmology. To complete that sacred vision, architects of the Khmer Empire surrounded the temple with enormous moats symbolizing the cosmic oceans. What might appear to be a purely aesthetic or religious choice was actually a crucial engineering feature. These moats did more than defend the complex. They regulated soil moisture, preventing the heavy stone foundations from sinking. The Cyclopean Walls of Alatri, Italy. The city's walls are built with stone blocks of enormous dimensions. The joints are so precise that even after 2,000 years, it is impossible to slide a knife blade between two stones. Such craftsmanship gives the structure remarkable stability, allowing the walls to withstand countless earthquakes and the passage of time almost intact. The scale of the construction is astonishing. For instance, the lintel of Porta Maggiore weighs around 24 tons and was raised without modern machinery. Additionally, the layout of the fortress appears to follow advanced geometric and astronomical principles. Research suggests that the perimeter of the walls aligns with the constellation Gemini during the summer solstice. The size of Moai, the scale of the challenge, Chile. Most of the Moai statues from the Rapa Nui culture that we see partially buried are located on the slopes of the Ranoi Raraku volcano, which served as the quarry which they were carved. Many of these statues never reached their final destination. They remained at the base of the volcano, waiting to be transported. For a long time, the world believed they were only heads, because that was the visible part above the ground. However, excavations revealed that they have complete bodies with arms, hands, and torsos. What we see above ground sometimes represents only 25% or 30% of the entire statue. The base, center of gravity, and weight distribution suggest an understanding of fundamental physical principles. How could a society without metal, wheels, or draft animals move and raise such colossal masses? Theories range from the use of sledges and rollers to rocking systems that may have allowed the statues to walk. The Minaret of Jam, geometry and height in a remote valley, Afghanistan. In an isolated valley in modern-day Afghanistan, surrounded by steep mountains and powerful rivers, rises a tower that seems almost out of place. Built in the 12th century, it raises an immediate question. How was such a slender and precise structure erected in such an extreme environment? The minaret was constructed during the height of the Ghurid Empire, a regional power that controlled large parts of Central Asia. It was built with fired brick, a common material in the region, but used here with exceptional mastery. Despite earthquakes, river floods, and centuries of abandonment, the tower still stands. Shibam, the vertical city of the desert, Yemen. In the Hadramaut Valley, this city was built more than 500 years ago with an urban skyline that feels strikingly modern. Often called the Manhattan of the desert, its multi-story buildings form one of the earliest examples of vertical urban planning in history. It was designed with a clear purpose: to protect its inhabitants while making the most efficient use of limited space. Urban planning also reveals thoughtful design. Narrow streets create constant shade, helping reduce interior temperatures. The Fortress of Van, a structure ahead of its time, Turkey. On the shores of Lake Van in eastern Turkey, this fortress was built by the Kingdom of Urartu in the 9th century before our era. Rather than reshaping the terrain, its builders adapted the architecture to the rock, creating an almost organic integration. Such an approach, common in modern sustainable architecture, was already being practiced in Van thousands of years ago. Large stones were used at the base to ensure stability, while the upper sections combined lighter materials. This layered construction closely resembles techniques used in modern structural engineering. Maya temples and the knowledge of the sky. In the jungles of Mesoamerica, across what are now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, stands the remains of the Maya civilization. They not only built monumental cities in challenging environments, but also developed an advanced understanding of time and the heavens. Their temples served as observational tools, symbols of cosmic order, and connections between Earth and the stars. Tracking the movement of the Sun, Moon, Venus, and the stars were essential for agriculture, religion, and social organization. Many Maya temples were constructed with precise alignments to specified celestial events. Others functioned as true observatories. From these sites, priest astronomers recorded the rising and setting of celestial bodies, adjusting ritual and agricultural cycles. Their observations relied on careful record-keeping, repetition, and the transmission of knowledge across generations. However, much of this knowledge was lost after the collapse of the Maya cities and the destruction of their texts. What we understand today represents only a fraction of their science of the sky. Puma Punku and the Enigma of Tiwanaku, Bolivia. In the highlands of the Andes lies the ruins of Tiwanaku, an ancient ceremonial center. Within this complex stands Puma Punku, a group of structures that continue to puzzle archaeologists even in their ruined state. At first glance, it appears to be a site destroyed by time, scattered stone blocks, collapsed platforms, and incomplete walls. But a closer look reveals extraordinary precision. The blocks of Puma Punku are carved with remarkable accuracy. Many display perfect right angles, flat surfaces, and symmetrical cuts that seem almost machine-made. Some pieces fit together as if they were part of a modular system, comparable to modern prefabricated components. Chand Bori, Engineering to Survive the Climate, India. This structure was built between the 9th and 10th centuries in a region with harsh climatic conditions, the result of engineering designed to endure extremes. In the Indian region of Rajasthan, long periods of drought alternate with intense monsoon rains, creating a constant challenge for water access and management. Stepwells therefore emerged as an essential solution for survival. With nearly 3,000 steps arranged across 13 levels, Chand Bori allowed access to water regardless of its level. As the water dropped during the dry season, people could simply descend further to reach it. This design ensured a reliable supply even during severe droughts. Derinkuyu, the underground city that anticipated modern urban planning, Turkey. Beneath the surface of Cappadocia in present-day Turkey lies this complex underground city. Built and expanded over centuries by different cultures, Derinkuyu reached its greatest development during the Byzantine period. Its design served a clear purpose, protecting the population from invasions and constant threats. The city descends deep underground and is organized into multiple levels connected by narrow passageways. There were homes, storage areas, kitchens, wineries, schools, and religious spaces, a functional layout similar to that of modern cities. At least 50 vertical ventilation shafts ran through the city, allowing fresh air to reach even the deepest levels. Maiden Castle, the Fortress of Defensive Labyrinths, United Kingdom. It is not actually a castle, but a fortified Neolithic settlement that is about 6,000 years old. During the Iron Age, it evolved into a residential center and a place for iron production. Invaders had to pass through narrow corridors between raised earthworks, exposed to projectiles from both sides. The Ziggurat of Ur, the artificial mountain where the gods lived, Iraq. It is the best preserved ziggurat in Mesopotamia, perhaps the prototype for the biblical Tower of Babel. Built 4,000 years ago by King Ur-Nammu and completed by his son Shulgi. Originally, it rose in 3 terraces, crowned by a temple dedicated to Nana, the god of the moon. Every brick bears the stamped name of the king, like millions of tiny signatures proclaiming his glory. The Theatre of Marcellus, the origin of Roman monumental architecture, Italy. Inaugurated in 12 before our era, this amphitheater marked a turning point in the monumental architecture of the ancient world. It had an estimated capacity of 15 to 20,000 spectators, mainly hosting theatrical performances. The design introduced architectural solutions that would become standard for centuries. Its semicircular structure, with tiered seating arranged in levels, allowed excellent visibility from any position. One innovative feature was the use of stacked arches, enabling the construction of a tall and durable structure. Sacsayhuama, the precision of Inca stonework, Peru. This site is both a fortress and a ceremonial complex, an extraordinary demonstration of the stone mastery achieved by the Inca civilization. The walls impress with their scale. Massive stone blocks, some weighing several tons, form zigzagging ramparts. Yet what truly astonishes observers is the way the stones fit together. Every block was individually carved to match the contours of its neighboring stones. Such a style of assembly provides exceptional resistance to earthquakes, which are common in the Andean region. Despite centuries of time, earthquakes, and partial destruction after the conquest, much of Sacsayhuama still stands. Its walls continue to demonstrate a structural efficiency that many later constructions have never matched. Ishi no Hoden, the Floating Stone, Japan. This gigantic carved rock, weighing about 500 tons, seems to defy gravity as it mysteriously hovers above a pool of water. It was carved directly from the mountain's bedrock, but was never completely separated from it. A small pond surrounds the stone, creating the optical illusion that it floats above the water, an effect that has fascinated visitors for centuries. No one knows with certainty who built it or for what purpose. Yonaguni Monument, ruins or natural formations, Japan. In 1986, a diver named Kihachiro Aratake discovered this enormous step structure off the coast of Yonaguni. It appeared to be an underwater pyramid with terraces, steps, and right angles that seemed to defy explanation. Some sections show 90-degree angles and remarkably flat surfaces. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura has spent decades studying the site and argues that it is a submerged city built by an unknown civilization. On the other hand, geologists such as Robert Schoch believe the formations can be explained by natural processes. Nan Madol, the Venice of the Pacific, Micronesia. It served as the ceremonial capital of the Saudeleur dynasty, which ruled Pompeii between the years 1100 and 1628. Ancient inhabitants stacked enormous basalt blocks, some weighing up to 50 tons, to create artificial platforms on top of the coral reef. Temples, royal tombs, ceremonial pools, and residences for the priestly elite were then built on these small islands. The project required moving an estimated 750,000 tons of volcanic rock, all on a remote island without pulleys, metal tools, or draft animals. Churches of Lalibela, cathedrals carved into rock, Ethiopia. In the Ethiopian highlands, 11 churches were carved vertically into red volcanic rock. They were freed from the surface downward, like sculptures extracted from the mountain itself. Bet Georgis, shaped like a Greek cross, seemed to rise directly out of the ground. Its geometry and precision remain astonishing even today. Eight centuries later, Orthodox monks still celebrate Mass inside these inverted cathedrals. The Pyramid of the Sun, Teotihuacan's artificial mountain, Mexico. The origin of this colossal pyramid remains a mystery. To build it about 1900 years ago, millions of tons of material had to be moved without wheels or draft animals. It was abandoned centuries before the Aztecs arrived, and the city lost its name in history. The Aztecs later gave it the name, the place where men become gods. Baalbek, giant stone blocks, Lebanon. In ancient times, it was known as the City of the Sun, and still preserves the ruins of temples dedicated to Jupiter, Bacchus, and Venus. Originally, it was a Phoenician sanctuary devoted to the god Baal, later taken over by the Greeks and eventually by the Romans. The monoliths of Baalbek and the blocks of the Temple of Jupiter reach weights between 750 and 1,700 tons. Its design does not match the typical Roman style, suggesting that some of these structures may have existed before the arrival of the Roman Empire. Methods used to cut, transport, and assemble blocks of that size exceed what we currently understand about ancient engineering. Some theories mention rollers and ramps, yet there are no conclusive evidence explaining how these massive stones were moved. The Great Pyramids of Giza, the wonder of the ancient world, Egypt. For nearly 4,600 years, it has challenged the limits of what we believe possible. It was built using about 2 million blocks, fitted with millimeter precision upon a perfectly leveled base. The pyramid is aligned with the cardinal directions with minimal error and reproduces the number pi with 4 decimal places of accuracy. Deep inside the Great Pyramid lies a rectangular chamber of red granite that has puzzled researchers for centuries. This chamber was constructed with stones transported from Aswan, 800 kilometers or about 497 miles away, some weighing up to 80 tons. The sarcophagus, which has no lid, is wider than the passage entrance, meaning it must have been placed during construction. When Arab explorers entered the 19th century, they found it completely empty. Borobudur Temple, the sacred mountain of Buddhas, Indonesia. This enormous Buddhist monument from the 8th century resembles a stepped pyramid, composed of concentric terraces filled with Buddha statues. Roughly 2 million stone blocks were used in its construction, featuring intricate carvings and near-perfect radial symmetry. Viewed from above, it resembles a mandala-like design, or even a contemporary architectural structure, because of its clear geometric pattern and colossal scale. Its walls are covered with thousands of narrative relief panels illustrating the teachings of Buddha and sacred Buddhist texts. Hattusa, the capital of the empire that challenged Egypt, Turkey. It served as the capital of the Hittite Empire, a superpower that flourished about 3,700 years ago. Its defensive walls enclosed temples, palaces, archives, and a citadel that governed a territory stretching from the Mediterranean to Mesopotamia. The Lion Gate stands as a powerful example of Hittite monumentality. Hittite craftsmen were among the first to master iron metallurgy, carefully guarding the secret as a military advantage. Machu Picchu, the city that defies gravity, Peru. Suspended between two Andean peaks, this residential zone proves that the Incas built not only temples, but entire cities in seemingly impossible locations. The urban sector includes homes, workshops, storehouses, and communal spaces, all constructed from carved stone fitted together without mortar. Rather than forcing the landscape to adapt, the streets follow the natural contours of the mountain. Beneath each building lies a hidden drainage system made of gravel and stone that has kept the city stable for 500 years in a seismically active region. Nearly 60% of the construction effort lies underground: foundations, channels, and retaining terraces that prevent the mountain from sliding. Dún Anguissa, the fortress at the edge of the abyss, Ireland. This prehistoric fort was built 3,000 years ago in what seems like an impossible location. Three semicircular dry stone walls protect an enclosure that ends at a cliff dropping straight into the Atlantic Ocean. Why construct a fortress on a cliff edge? Some believe it was originally a full circle and that part of the structure collapsed into the sea. Borgund Stave Church, the Viking temple that survived Christianity, Norway. The church was built only 2 centuries after the Vikings abandoned their pagan gods. Its architecture still echoes earlier temples, with dragons, serpents, and motifs that feel closer to Odin than to Christ. Not a single metal nail was used. Everything is joined through intricate wooden joints. Builders also applied the same waterproofing material used in Viking ships, a maritime technology adapted for sacred architecture. Stonehenge, the Stone Observatory, England. On the Salisbury Plain, a circle of massive stones has watched the sky for 4,500 years, aligned with remarkable astronomical precision. The largest stones, called sarsens, weigh up to 25 tons. Horizontal lintels are connected to the vertical uprights using traditional joint techniques. Temple, observatory, or healing site. What we know for certain is that those who built it dedicated entire generations to completing it. Newgrange, the tomb that captures the solstice light, Ireland. 1,000 years before the pyramids of Egypt were built, Neolithic inhabitants of Ireland erected this monument. It is a circular mound covered in grass, with a passage leading to a central burial chamber. During the winter solstice, a beam of sunlight enters through a special opening and illuminates the back of the chamber. The roof of the central chamber has remained completely waterproof for 5,000 years. Aksum Stele, the stone skyscrapers of a forgotten empire, Ethiopia. The kingdom of Aksum raised these towering stelae to mark the tombs of their kings. Aksumite engineers carved them in distant quarries, transported them without wheels, and set them upright. The stela that stands today was carved from a single block of stone. Across its surface, the design imitates the facade of a multi-story building, with false doors and windows carved into solid rock. Al-Khazneh, the temple carved into the mountain, Jordan. At the end of a narrow winding canyon, after walking between towering rock walls, this rose-colored facade suddenly appears, Al-Khazneh, the treasury of Petra. Nabatean craftsmen carved it directly into the sandstone. Columns, pediments, and statues emerged from living rock. Local Bedouins named it the Treasury, believing the interior held the riches of a pharaoh. Was it a royal tomb or a temple? Its original purpose remains uncertain. Atlantes of Tula, the stone warriors watching the sky, Mexico. Atop a pyramid in this ancient city, 4 stone giants have watched the horizon for 1,000 years. These Atlantes stand as the stone legacy of the feared Toltec civilization. More than statues, they once supported the roof of the temple dedicated to the god of the planet Venus. Toltec culture left very few written records, and much of what is known comes from the Aztecs, who regarded them as a founding civilization. Kailasa, Temple of Ellora, the mountain turned into a temple, India. It was created under the Rashtrakuta dynasty, representing Mount Kailash, the sacred home of the god Shiva. Artisans excavated this temple by starting at the top of a hill and carving downward. Each strike of the chisel had to be exact. No stone could be added if a mistake occurred, demanding astonishing mathematical precision. Historians estimate that 400,000 tons of rock were removed. The mystery of Kassala lies not only in how it was built, but also in where all that stone went. Palace of Knossos, the Labyrinth of the Minotaur, Crete. Knossos served as the center of the Minoan civilization, the first great civilization of Europe, a people who ruled the seas. Many believe its labyrinth-like complexity inspired the myth of the Minotaur, the monster said to live in an inescapable maze. Remarkably advanced technologies were developed by the Minoans, including plumbing systems, flushing toilets, and covered sewage networks. Inside the palace, walls were decorated with frescoes, depicting dolphins, bulls, priestesses, and scenes of everyday life. Monte Albán, the mountain flattened to build a city, Mexico. The Zapotecs transformed the summit of this mountain into a ceremonial city. A vast artificial plaza once held temples, palaces, ball courts, and observatories. During its peak period, the city may have held around 35,000 inhabitants, becoming a metropolis of remarkable cultural diversity. Gradual abandonment occurred around the 9th century, possibly due to political changes and regional conflicts. Pantheon of Agrippa, the dome that divided 2,000 years, Italy. This temple, built atop an earlier structure, preserves the largest concrete dome ever constructed, still intact after nearly 2,000 years. Its dome, as tall as it is wide, is illuminated only by the central oculus open to the sky. Through that opening, sunlight and rain enter freely, the beam of light acting like a cosmic clock, while water drains through nearly invisible outlets. What makes it possible is Roman concrete, engineered with extraordinary precision and a flawless balance of weight. Minaret of Samarra, the spiral rising to the sky, Iraq. It dominates the Mesopotamian plain, built about 1,100 years ago. Great in height, with an exterior spiral ramp, the structure allowed people to climb all the way to the top. Nothing like its design had existed before, making it a unique form in the history of Islamic architecture. For centuries, it stood as a beacon of the desert and a symbol of Baghdad, a legendary city. Timna Valley, the mines of King Solomon, Israel. Mining in this region began about 6,500 years ago, making it one of the oldest mining operations in the world. Egyptians, Midianites, Edomites, and the Nabateans all left their traces in these blood-red mountains. Egyptian miners worked alongside local populations in a multinational operation that produced copper for the entire Eastern Mediterranean. For decades, these were believed to be the mines of King Solomon, but recent research suggests the production may have been carried out by Israel's rivals. Iron Pillar of Delhi, India. Standing among medieval Islamic ruins, this iron pillar has remained exposed to the elements for 1,600 years with barely any signs of rust. The structure weighs 6 tons and was forged as a single piece through the welding of iron bars, heated until red hot. Such forging techniques were common in ancient India, yet the final result in this case defies the normal laws of corrosion. Caucus dolmens, the stone houses no one can replicate. Russia. These structures were built 4,000 years ago during the early Bronze Age. Nearly 3,000 have been documented, although many remain hidden beneath the subtropical vegetation of the mountains. Sandstone slabs forming the walls, floor, and roof were cut with remarkable precision. Connections between the stones are so exact that archaeologists often describe the fit as airtight. The Tumulus of Bougon, stone architecture before written history, France. In western France stands this group of constructions raised 6,500 years ago. They belong to the Neolithic period, an era often associated with simple tools and primitive societies. What these structures reveal, however, is an advanced understanding of stone construction. The site consists of several burial mounds, but in different phases over the course of many centuries. Kanheri Caves, a city carved into the rock, India. This vast Buddhist complex includes 109 caves carved into dark basalt. Within them were meeting halls, monks' dwellings, meditation areas, and large ceremonial chambers. The entire complex was carved rather than assembled from blocks, which required precise planning before any excavation began. An advanced water management system is also part of the site. Channels carved into the rock directed rainwater into cisterns and reservoirs, ensuring a steady supply throughout the year. Sayhuite, the mysterious map of the Incas, Peru. High in the Peruvian Andes lies this enigmatic archaeological object. It is a massive rock covered with hundreds of carved figures, crafted with a precision that still amazes researchers. The stone's surface is filled with relief carvings showing water channels, agricultural terraces, stairways, lagoons, pumas, monkeys, and human figures. Some archaeologists believe it served as a scale model used by Inca engineers to plan irrigation systems before constructing them. Rani Ki Vav, the Queen's Stepwell, India. This structure is an inverted temple of 7 levels descending deep into the earth. Water, a sacred element in Hindu cosmology, is honored at every stage of the descent. Its walls are covered with exquisite sculptures depicting gods and mythological scenes. Pont du Gard, the bridge that carried a river through the air, France. It was built 2,000 years ago as part of the aqueduct that supplied water to the city of Nimes. Rising 49 meters, or about 160 feet, it remains the tallest surviving Roman aqueduct bridge in the world. Massive stone blocks in the lower level weigh up to 6 tons and were assembled without mortar. Turji Stepwell, India. It was built in the 1740s by the Queen of Maharaja Ubhai Singh to secure a reliable water supply for the city. Its stairways are arranged in precise patterns that descend toward the center, creating a striking sense of symmetry. For decades, the well remained dry, filled with debris and largely forgotten by tourism. Masuda no Ofune, the mystery carved in stone, Japan. This structure is an enormous granite block carved directly from the bedrock with an estimated volume of 700 tons. Its edges are straight, and the surfaces are surprisingly smooth. All of this was done in granite, one of the hardest materials to shape even with modern technology. Even so, its origin and purpose remain unknown. Some theories suggest it may have been part of a ceremonial complex or an astronomical marker. Osirian of Abydos, the submerged temple, Egypt. This enigmatic structure continues to puzzle archaeologists. Decoration and inscriptions are almost entirely absent. Massive blocks, some weighing around 100 tons, are assembled with stark simplicity. Officially, it was built by Seti I in the 13th century before our era, though some researchers believe it may date to an earlier period. The water table keeps the structure partially flooded, creating an atmosphere that seems to transport visitors to the mythical origins of Egyptian civilization. Serapeum of Saqqara, the mystery of the giant boxes, Egypt. This site is a complex of underground tunnels located near the famous pyramids of Saqqara. Inside are 24 monumental sarcophagi, believed, according to official explanation, to have been created to bury the sacred bulls known as Apis. What leaves observers astonished is the precision with which these boxes were manufactured. Each sarcophagus weighs between 60 and 100 tons. Interior surfaces are polished to a level of perfection that today would require specialized machinery, while the angles are so exact that almost no margin of error exists. Alla Stenar, the stone ship sailing toward the sun, Sweden. On a cliff above the Baltic Sea, 59 stone blocks weighing up to 2 tons form the outline of a Viking ship. Stones at the bow and stern align with exact points on the horizon, where the sun rises during the winter solstice and sets during the summer solstice. The entire monument functions as a solar calendar that precisely marks the key moments of the agricultural year. Anu Vinapu, the stone that connects oceans, Chile. On the southwest corner of Easter Island, facing the Pacific Ocean, stands this puzzling structure from the Rapi Nui culture. It is a ceremonial platform whose walls are made of large stone blocks, carved and fitted together with extraordinary precision. Surfaces are flat, edges straight, and the joints nearly invisible. The way the stones interlock immediately recalls the constructions of the Inca civilization. In both cases, large blocks were individually shaped so they could fit together with exact accuracy. Konark Temple, the Wheel of the Sun, India. Built in the 13th century, the structure of this temple represents a monumental chariot with 24 stone wheels. Every wheel functions like a clock, oriented so that time can be measured through the shadow it casts. Such design reveals a deep understanding of the sun's apparent movement and the geometry required to translate it into stone. The temple itself was also precisely aligned toward the east, allowing it to receive the first rays of sunrise. The Pyramid of Medum, the experiment that changed Egyptian architecture, Egypt. Construction took place during the reign of Pharaoh Sneferu, a key figure in the evolution of Egyptian architecture. Medum was one of his great experiments, as the pyramid originally began as a step structure. Later, builders attempted to transform it into a smooth-sided pyramid by adding outer layers of limestone. Much of the outer casing collapsed, probably because of problems related to the steep angles of its sides. Roman roads, paths designed to last. Across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, sections of roads built 2,000 years ago can still be found today. For Rome, these roads were strategic tools that allowed armies to move, trade to flourish, and a vast empire to be governed. A top layer made of tightly filled stone slabs provided a stable and durable surface. Those slabs were slightly curved, allowing rainwater to flow into side ditches and preventing accumulation that could damage the road. Even today, this remains a basic principle in road construction. Another advanced feature was standardization. The width of many Roman roads followed similar measurements, making the movement of carts and maintenance much easier. Tiryns, the Fortress of Giant Walls, Greece. According to Greek mythology, the hero Heracles was born here, and the walls were said to be so enormous that only the Cyclopes could have built them. Its fortifications were constructed with stone blocks weighing up to 13 tons. This technique involves stacking massive irregular rocks that fit together without the need for mortar. Çatalhöyük, the city without streets, Turkey. It is considered the first city in the world, a place with no streets or plazas where daily life unfolded across the rooftops. People lived here between 9,500 and 7,500 years ago, forming a continuous cluster of mud brick houses that may have held up to 10,000 inhabitants. Entry into the homes was through the roof using ladders, while the flat rooftops served as shared public spaces. Tower of Jericho, humanity's first skyscraper, Palestine. In the Oasis of Jericho stands the oldest stone structure ever built by human beings. This conical tower was constructed 11,000 years ago and was already 5,000 years old when the pyramids were raised. For centuries, it remained the tallest building in the world. Its purpose is still uncertain, although studies suggest possible astronomical motivations. Shustar, Persia's hydraulic masterpiece, Iran. It is a remarkable hydraulic engineering system that includes dams, canals, underground tunnels, bridges, and water mills. At the center lies the Gargar Canal, an artificial river that diverts water from the Karun through a step dam. Water cascades through the system, powering dozens of mills and turning Shustar into one of the earliest industrial complexes in history. Ugrasen Kuboli, the stairway descending into mystery, India. In New Delhi, surrounded by skyscrapers, this monumental staircase descends deep into the earth through 108 steps. Each level goes lower, while gradually narrowing, forming a geometric perspective that almost seems designed to create vertigo. The body of water at the bottom cooled the air rising through the staircase, producing a refreshing current in a city known for its scorching summers. Nalanda, the first university in the world, India. In essence, it was the first residential university in human history. Founded in the 5th century, the institution operated for 7 centuries and could house 10,000 students along with 2,000 teachers. Its buildings included underground drainage systems and channels for natural ventilation. Student quarters featured individual cells designed for study and meditation. The Polygonal Wall of Delphi, the Impossible Puzzle, Greece. This wall was built with stone blocks of completely irregular shapes, fitted together like a three-dimensional puzzle. Such precise fitting made the mortar unnecessary, yet the structure has withstood earthquakes for 2,500 years. The technique strikingly resembles the stonework of the Inca walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, but 2 millennia later. Jantia Temples, the giants who built before anyone else, Malta. These temples date back about 5,600 years, making them the oldest known religious structures in the world. For centuries, islanders believed that only giants could have built them. Outer walls were constructed with stone blocks weighing up to 50 tons. Neolithic builders had neither metal tools nor the wheel, yet they raised these enormous structures with a precision that still impresses today. Nak Rostam, the kings who were buried in the sky, Iran. These tombs were carved 2,500 years ago for the Persian kings Darius I, Xerxes, Artaxerxes, and Darius II. Each tomb is shaped like a Greek cross, with a facade faithfully reproducing the entrance of the palace of Persepolis. Reliefs depict every king standing on a platform, supported by the representatives of the 28 people of the empire, ranging from Greeks to Ethiopians. The Pyramid of Djedefre and the Impossible Cuts, Egypt. The Pyramid of Pharaoh Djedefre, son of Khufu, has long been regarded as an unfinished project. Some of the blocks displayed deep, straight-cutting marks, and in certain cases surprisingly curved ones. Granite is among the hardest rocks to work with, and even today, its precise cutting requires industrial tools and heavy machinery. Although there is no evidence of advanced technology in the modern sense, the final result remains puzzling. Lomas Rishi Cave, the temple carved to imitate wood, India. In the Barabar Hills of eastern India lies this artificial cave, excavated with a precision that seems impossible for its time. Carved during the Mauryan Empire, it features an interior polished to a mirror-like finish. Its acoustics amplify sound in remarkable ways, suggesting the space was designed for meditation and ritual chanting. Archaeologists still debate what tools and techniques could have produced such immaculate surfaces in such hard rock. Tipon Aqueducts, the Inca Hydraulic Laboratory, Peru. In the sacred valley of the Incas, this complex of fountains, channels, and cascades continues to function with the same precision as it did 500 years ago. Many believe it served as a hydraulic experimentation center, where Inca engineers refined their techniques before applying them across the empire. Water flows through carefully leveled stone channels, spills down stepped waterfalls, and emerges in ornamental fountains. Five centuries later, modern hydraulic engineers still study the site to understand how such perfection was achieved without advanced measuring instruments. Roman Theater of Ammon, the hidden Colosseum of the desert, Jordan. Carved into a hillside in the heart of the Jordanian capital, this 6,000-seat theater has survived almost intact for nearly 2 millennia. Its acoustics are so precise that a coin dropped on the stage can be heard clearly from the last row. Roman engineers calculated every angle and curve so sound could travel without artificial amplification. The theater faces north, so the sun would never blind spectators during afternoon performances. Ring of Brodgar, the perfect circle at the edge of the world. In the Orkney Islands, a ring of standing stones forms one of the most perfectly designed prehistoric circles ever created by human hands. Whoever planned it 4,500 years ago understood geometry long before the Greeks gave it a name. Estimates suggest that digging the surrounding ditch alone required around 8,000 hours of labor, equivalent to one person working without rest for 9 years. Chan Chan, the metropolis of mud, Peru. It served as the capital of the Chimu Kingdom. At its peak, around 100,000 inhabitants lived in a city carefully designed with palaces, temples, and gardens. The settlement was organized into 9 walled citadels, each built by a different king, and sealed as his tomb after death. A system of canals carried water from the Mochi River, transforming the desert into gardens. Today, the city slowly crumbles, threatened by the heavy rains of El Niño that its builders never anticipated. Arch of Ctesiphon, the vault that embarrasses modern engineers, Iraq. This structure preserves the largest unreinforced brick vault ever built, still standing after 1,700 years. It spans an immense space without a single column, created by Sasanian engineers using only bricks and plasters without scaffolding. Its minimal thickness contradicts modern structural calculations, which suggest it should have collapsed long ago. Knap of Hawar, the oldest house in Northern Europe, Scotland. On a windswept island, these 2 stone structures have endured for more than 5,000 years. Until their rediscovery in the 19th century, the site remained hidden, and today it serves as a time capsule revealing everyday life in the Neolithic past. People lived here about 5,500 years ago in two connected buildings that functioned as both home and workshop. Thick walls and carefully arranged interiors reveal a design meant to survive the brutal Scottish winters. Dolmen of Minga, the tomb of the Andalusian giants, Spain. Built around 5,500 years ago, this monument was for centuries attributed to giants or gods. Its chamber is covered by colossal stone slabs, one of them weighing about 180 tons. Constructed without wheels or pulleys, the monument still raises one of the greatest mysteries of European prehistory. Orientation and interior pillars reveal an astonishing level of engineering, unusual for European construction techniques of the time. Skara Brae, the village unearthed by the sea, Scotland. In the Orkney Islands, a violent storm in 1850 exposed this remarkably preserved Neolithic village. People lived here 5,000 years ago, making it contemporary with the earliest Egyptian pyramids. Inside the houses remain stone beds, shelves, and hearths, as if their inhabitants had only just left. Every dwelling followed the same layout, revealing a society that was organized and meticulous. Treasury of Atreus, the underground cathedral of the Mycenaean kings, Greece. Beneath a hill near Mycenae lies this monumental tomb, once attributed to the legendary King Atreus. Built about 3,000 years ago at the height of the Mycenaean culture, a cyclopean passage leads to a perfectly vaulted chamber. Its corbelled dome remained the largest in the world for more than 1,000 years, a feat far ahead of its time. Every block was carved with extreme precision, including a lintel weighing 120 tons. Kumsungdae, the Observatory of the Stars, South Korea. In the ancient capital of the Silla Kingdom stands this curious stone tower that has watched the sky for nearly 1,400 years. The structure contains exactly 362 stones. Its 27 circular layers represent the 27 constellations of the Chinese zodiac. A central window faces south, allowing the light of the equinox to illuminate the interior. It functioned as an observatory where eclipses, comets, and celestial cycles were recorded with great accuracy. Cistern of Theodosius, the submerged cathedral beneath Istanbul, Turkey. Built 1,600 years ago, it is considered one of the hidden jewels of ancient Constantinople. It formed part of a vast supply network designed to store the water brought by the aqueduct of Valens. Such infrastructure was vital for supplying palaces, public baths, and fountains, ensuring the survival of the city during droughts and sieges. Fortress of Erbuni, the citadel that preceded Armenia, Armenia. Founded in 782 before our era, according to the cuneiform inscription discovered at the site, this stronghold marked the rise of an early kingdom. Its walls combine stone and adobe, following the contours of the hill with architecture adapted to the terrain. Within the fortress once stood decorated palaces and a hydraulic system that distributed water throughout the complex. Pikalacta, the Grid City, Peru. This pre-Inca city was designed with remarkable precision, its identical buildings resembling modern urban planning more than the ancient world. Constructed about 1400 years ago by the Wari civilization, it once housed thousands of people distributed among nearly 700 rectangular buildings. Everything in Pikalacta seemed intended to organize and monitor those who lived there. The settlement was abandoned centuries before the rise of the Incas, and when they arrived, they ritually sealed it, convinced the place belonged to the spirits. Theater of Epidaurus, the amphitheater where even a whisper is heard, Greece. The acoustics of this theater are so remarkable that the sound of a single coin dropping can be heard from the last row, even at a great distance. Its semicircular shape is no coincidence. Every tier was calculated to direct sound with a precision that anticipates modern engineering. Limestone acts as a natural equalizer, filtering background noise while amplifying the human voice. No modern auditorium has replicated this effect without electronic technology. Huaca de la Luna, the temple painted with the blood of the mountain, Peru. The Mochi culture built this temple, which expanded layer upon layer over 6 centuries. Construction took place about 1800 years ago using 50 million adobe bricks, reflecting an almost industrial level of organization. The Decapitator, the supreme mochi god with fangs and bulging eyes, dominates the walls. Great Enclosure of Great Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe. For centuries, this city was believed to be a myth because many assumed advanced architecture had not developed in Africa. More than 1 million stone blocks fit together with a precision that seems closer to modern engineering. The walls follow the natural contours of the landscape, creating organic rather than geometric spaces. Inside the enclosure stands a mysterious conical tower without an entrance, staircase, or interior chamber, still puzzling archaeologists today. La Malga Cisterns, the underground sea of Carthage, Tunisia. Beneath the hills of ancient Carthage lies a hydraulic system with an almost industrial scale. Roman builders constructed these cisterns to store water like a vast underground reservoir. "24 vaulted chambers stretch in parallel, each roughly the length of a football field. Even after conquests and collapse, the cisterns continued operating for centuries. Balbaji Pagoda, Myanmar. This pagoda has endured for 1,500 years without collapsing, outlasting the civilization that built it. Raised about 1,600 years ago, it is the oldest brick stupa in Southeast Asia. Its bricks distribute weight with a precision still studied today. Unlike many ancient structures, it has not required major reconstruction. Sealed and never excavated, it is believed to hold relics that no one has ever seen. Nashtafan windmills, the turbines that have been turning for 1,000 years, Iran. Built roughly 1,000 years ago, these are the oldest windmills still in operation. For 10 centuries, they have harnessed relentless winds with an efficiency that feels surprisingly modern. In an era focused on renewable energy, these mills prove that sustainable solutions already existed in the past. Broch of Musa, the hollow tower of the Iron Warriors, Scotland. On a remote island of the Shetland archipelago rises this cylindrical, dry stone tower that has stood for 2,000 years. The structure narrows as it rises, displaying a precision that challenges assumptions about Iron Age engineering in Scotland. Inside, the design becomes even more astonishing. Hollow walls and a staircase built between them reduce weight while increasing stability. Goseck Circle, Europe's Solar Observatory, Germany. This monument was built about 7,000 years ago, nearly 2 millennia before Stonehenge. It consists of 2 concentric ditches and 2 wooden palisades with 3 gates marking the north, southeast, and southwest with astronomical precision. Neolithic builders calculated these alignments without instruments, writing, or any known formal mathematics. Kokino Observatory, the stone calendar of the Balkans, North Macedonia. Rock formations were modified nearly 4,000 years ago to create a vast astronomical observatory, essentially a megalithic instrument for measuring time. Ancient astronomers carved seats and markers into the stone to track movements of the sun and the moon throughout the year. By aligning the eye with rock grooves and the horizon, an observer could determine the exact date simply by seeing when the sun appeared. Dalukathi Gold Mines, United Kingdom. These mines were exploited about 2,000 years ago, shortly after the Roman conquest of Britain. Imperial engineers constructed large aqueducts to bring millions of liters of water to the gold-bearing mountains. When Rome withdrew from Britain, the mines were abandoned and knowledge of hydraulic mining disappeared from Europe for nearly 1,000 years. Dumat al-Jandal, the oasis where Arabia met the world, Saudi Arabia. This city has been inhabited for 5,000 years, making it one of the oldest urban sites in Arabia. Despite its isolated surroundings, it was so valuable that empires such as the Roman and Babylonian fought to control it. Positioned between Mesopotamia, the Levant, Egypt, and southern Arabia, it became a mandatory crossroads on one of the most lucrative trade routes in the ancient world. The castle of Merid dominates the oasis from a rocky hill, its stone walls rebuilt by every civilization that ruled the site. Kavustep Castle, the Bronze Age fortress with running water, Turkey. The complex spreads across two connected hills, one reserved for the royal palace and the other for the temple of the god Haldi. Archaeologists were astonished when they discovered the sanitation system. Stone channels carried water from mountain springs to the palace baths and toilets. Waste flowed through separate pipes leading outside to fortress walls. Nabta Playa Stone Circle, the African Stonehenge few people know, Egypt. This circle of stones may be the oldest astronomical observatory in the world. It was built 1,000 years before Stonehenge by nomadic herders who lived in what was once the Great Sahara. Kami Ruins, the Palace of Stone Patterns, Zimbabwe. It served as the capital of the Kingdom of Butua, founded by the Torwa after the collapse of Great Zimbabwe. For 2 centuries, this city stood as the center of power for a civilization that controlled the trade of gold and ivory toward the Indian Ocean. Rulers lived on elevated platforms, raised above their subjects on terraces that climbed the hill like steps towards the sky. Banawe Rice Terraces, Philippines. And the mountains of Luzon, agricultural terraces climb seemingly impossible slopes, carving the hills into green stairways. Ancestors of the Ifugwa people dug them 2,000 years ago using only stone and wooden tools. The hydraulic system is highly sophisticated. Water from the forest at the summit flows through bamboo and stone channels, moving from terrace to terrace. Each field receives exactly the amount of water it needs before draining into the next one. Chinapas of Xochimilco, the floating gardens that fed an empire, Mexico. The Aztecs used this agricultural technology to feed a population of 200,000 people in a city built on a lake. They are rectangular islands, constructed in shallow waters using alternating layers of aquatic vegetation, mud, and fertile soil. These plots can produce up to 7 harvests a year because plant roots always have direct access to water, Persian Qanats, the invisible rivers crossing the desert, Iran. Beneath the sands of Iran, a network of underground tunnels carries water from the mountains to desert oases without pumps or electricity. They have been operating for nearly 3,000 years, and some still supply entire cities. The principle is simple. A gently sloping tunnel connects a mountain aquifer with a distant settlement, letting gravity do all the work. Piscina Mirabilis, the cathedral of water that supplied the Roman fleet, Italy. It is the largest Roman cistern ever constructed, located in the hills of Bacali near Naples. Water entered at one end, settled in a central channel where impurities sank, and was then drawn clean from the opposite side. From this very place, Pliny the Elder sailed towards Mount Vesuvius in the year 79, the night the eruption destroyed Pompeii. Ajanta Caves, the art gallery that slept for 1,000 years in the jungle, India. These 30 caves carved into volcanic rock contain the oldest and best preserved paintings in India. Craftsmen sculpted monasteries, prayer halls, and sanctuaries within these chambers. Murals covering ceilings and walls depict the previous lives of the Buddha, with faces expressing complex emotions. In the 7th century, the caves were abandoned and swallowed by the jungle. Then in 1819, a British officer hunting tigers rediscovered them by accident. Walls of Norba, the stone puzzle that withstands earthquakes, Italy. In the hills of Lazio between Rome and Naples, these stone walls are so perfectly assembled that they have endured earthquakes for 24 centuries. When the ground shakes, the irregular blocks shift slightly and return to their original position, absorbing the energy. Each block was individually shaped to fit its neighbors, a process requiring advanced planning and exceptional craftsmanship. Monte Diacati, the ziggurat that should not exist in Europe, Italy. This steep structure is the only one of its kind in all of Europe, built 1,000 years before the pyramids of Egypt. Its resemblance to the ziggurats of Mesopotamia is striking. The access ramp and the temple at the summit replicate a type of construction supposedly absent outside the Near East. Did civilizations make contact? Or was it an independent invention? Archaeologists remain divided. Mustatils, prehistoric monuments of the desert, Saudi Arabia. In the deserts of northwestern Arabia, hundreds of enormous rectangular structures have been discovered after remaining hidden for 7,000 years. They were built before the pyramids of Egypt and before Stonehenge. Each one consists of 2 regular platforms, connected by low stone walls. Archaeologists have uncovered remains of animal offerings, suggesting ritual use on a scale never before seen at the time. Pueblo Bonito, the first skyscraper of the Americas, United States. In Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, the ruins of a 5-story apartment building rise from the desert, once the largest structure in North America for 3 centuries. It contained 650 rooms where hundreds of people lived in a carefully planned complex. Builders used 200,000 wooden beams brought from forests located many kilometers away. All of this was accomplished without wheels, pack animals, or metal tools. La Bastida de Totana, the most advanced Bronze Age fortress, Spain. This fortified city was built by the El Agar culture about 4,000 years ago. Its walls include defensive towers placed at regular intervals, a design that would not appear elsewhere in Europe for another 1,000 years. Homes were arranged on terraces following the slope of the hill, with paved streets and drainage systems. Su Noraxi of Burumini, the mysterious towers of the Sardinian warriors, Italy. This complex was built by the Nuragic culture, a civilization that flourished and vanished without leaving written records. The central tower is surrounded by 4 secondary towers connected by walls, forming a compact stone fortress. Around the main tower spreads a village of circular huts where artisans, farmers, and warriors once lived. Who were the Nuragic people? When the Romans arrived, this civilization had already collapsed, taking its answers to the grave. Hal Salfini Hypogeum, the underground labyrinth of the dead, Malta. It is the only known prehistoric underground temple in the world, a labyrinth of chambers carved by hand where the remains of thousands of people rest. Three levels descend beneath the ground, linked by stairways, corridors, and rooms that imitate the architecture of temples above the surface. The Oracle Chamber contains an extraordinary acoustic phenomenon. Deep male voices resonate throughout the entire complex. Archaeologists believe priests use this effect to impress the faithful. Barnena's Cairn, the forgotten pyramid of Europe, France. On the northeastern coast of Brittany stands this prehistoric monument, the largest in Europe, built 1,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids. It contains 11 burial chambers with corridors oriented towards the east, revealing a surprising knowledge of astronomy. What remains today reminds us that Europe has its own pyramids and that the ancient world can still surprise us. Standing stones of Rajajil, Saudi Arabia. In the desert of northwestern Saudi Arabia, more than 50 groups of tall stone columns rise from the ground. Erected around 6,000 years ago during the Neolithic period, they reveal that this region was once fertile and inhabited by pastoral and farming communities. Researchers believe the arrangement follows a precise and possibly astronomical design created by a civilization about which we know almost nothing. Stone spheres of Daquí, Costa Rica. They remain a fascinating archaeological mystery because of their nearly perfect spherical shape. Created by the pre-Columbian Daquí civilization between the years 300 and 1500 CE, these objects continue to intrigue researchers. They came to light when companies began clearing jungle to plant bananas and machinery struck the giant spheres hidden beneath the vegetation. Many were transported from distant quarries, implying highly advanced logistics to move them across difficult terrain and rivers. We have reached the end of this journey through ancient constructions that, astonishingly, seem far ahead of their time. History, however, still holds many secrets that continue to challenge what we believe and know. Until the next journey,